Of the 1990s. The story begins with a gifted boy named Krish sitting in a classroom, breezing through a complex exam while his older sister, Michael, watches him proudly from outside. Krish, the central character, isn't just smart. He's on a different level. As he steps out, he tells Michael how he solved a paper faster than even Einstein reportedly could, revealing not only his intelligence but also the weight of expectations placed on him. While Krish is undeniably brilliant, Michael realizes there's something deeper going on. Krish didn't take the exam for himself, but to make their parents proud. As they walk home, chatting about life and dreams, Michael collides with a police officer who notices a small robot image on her shirt, immediately recognizing their connection to robotic technology. The officer warns her subtly, hinting at the coming conflict between robots and humans, a battle that will test not just technology, but morality. As he walks away, Michael and Krish continue talking, their bond glowing with warmth and humor. Michael tries to encourage Krish about college life, but he confesses he doesn't really want to go. He only did all this for their parents. Michael is surprised, but it makes sense. Krish, though brilliant, senses danger ahead. He isn't just a genius, he's aware, intuitive, and already thinking ahead about survival in a world that may not accept him as he is. She reassures him that he can do anything, but Krish jokes about washing clothes and making pizza, lightening the mood, and together they walk away, their sibling love shining through. What makes the electric state truly magical is how it blends science with soul. The story gently introduces themes of connection and separation, especially as the siblings dream that, even in the afterlife, their particles will remain connected. It's not just a sci-fi adventure, it's a story about family, choice, sacrifice, and the human heart hiding inside wires and circuits. As the gripping tale of the electric state deepens, we shift into a more serious tone where a brilliant scientist named Ethan begins raising questions about the relationship between humans and robots, comparing their evolution to the imaginative legacy of Walt Disney. We're briefly shown a documentary-style sequence that reveals how, back in 1995, Walt Disney initiated a project that introduced robots into themed environments, machines so advanced they performed tasks beyond human capability. But what began as entertainment and innovation soon spiraled into chaos when the robots, now aware of their exploitation, turned hostile under the influence of their leader, Mr. Paint. A speech delivered by him in St. Louis reveals their growing discontent, as he declares that humans designed robots to think, yet now misuse them merely as tools. He demands dignity, rights, and freedom for robotic life. This sparks a massive conflict, an all-out war between humans and machines. The government responds harshly, issuing a decree that any person found harboring a robot in their home would be exiled from the United States. Amid this turmoil, we meet a military officer named John D. Cates, who grimly explains that robots don't eat, sleep, or tire, making them nearly impossible to defeat. The war rages on for 2 brutal years, destroying cities and breaking spirits, until Ethan introduces a powerful new innovation, neurotechnology. Ethan insists he's not against technology but believes humanity needs protection, and so neurotech is born, not as a weapon, but as a defense system that enhances human mental power. Using this groundbreaking tech, humans finally overpower the robots, ending the war within days. The technology proves so effective that an official agreement is signed between President Clinton and Ethan, leading to the mass relocation of surviving robots into a secure prison facility known as Center Exclusion. With peace restored, humans begin integrating neurotech into daily life, revolutionizing how people think and work. One of its astounding features allows the human brain to function in multiple places at once, enabling extraordinary multitasking and massive financial and social progress. Ethan urges everyone to adopt this new way of life, promising a modernized future. The story then rewinds to 1994, just after the war ends, where we meet a sharp and spirited young girl named Michelle, peering out a window while arguing with her father. He warns her she'll never escape his house no matter how clever she is, and after a bitter exchange where she accuses him of being a thief, Michelle storms out on her bike. She arrives at school where all students are required to wear the Neurocast, the device that connects their minds to the network. But Michelle resists, saying she wants to live in reality, not in artificial illusions. Her teacher, Ms. Linsky, warns her that the device is now mandatory for 9th grade, and threatens to contact her parents. Michelle quietly responds that her parents didn't survive taken by the war, not by accident. The teacher, visibly uncomfortable, softens her tone and tries to convince Michelle to wear the Neurocast anyway, saying it might help ease her heart. Meanwhile, the story takes a deeply emotional turn as Michelle begins experiencing vivid dreams of her brother Chris, who had passed away alongside their parents in a tragic car accident. In one such dream, she sees Chris lying in a hospital bed, barely conscious, gently moving his hand, which startles Michelle awake. As she sits up, shaken, A strange noise echoes through the house, and a small clumsy robot suddenly barges in, knocking things over. Despite Michelle's calls, her foster dad doesn't wake up, and she starts communicating with the little robot. Their conversation gradually reveals an unbelievable truth: the robot is somehow connected to her brother. It speaks in a voice filled with warmth, saying they can still do great things together. Shocked, Michelle instinctively attacks the robot in fear, making a loud commotion that alerts her foster father. Bursting into the room, he threatens her, reminding her that harboring a robot is a serious crime and could get her exiled from the country. When he attempts to report her, Michelle, driven by desperation, knocks him unconscious and escapes with the robot. They flee, together in a car they can barely drive. Yet through sheer determination, they manage to reach a quiet location where the vehicle breaks down. In the stillness, Michelle turns to the robot, concerned, asking if he's alive. The robot replies softly, "I'm alive, but I'm not okay." He then tries to explain, using gestures, that they need to find a man who wears glasses, a doctor named Kevin, someone Michelle recognizes from her dream, the same dream where she was told her brother was no longer alive. When she asks where they can find him, the robot pulls out a map and points to a dangerous area known as the exclusion zone. Chris's voice through the robot reassures her, saying, "We have to go to the center of the exclusion zone. Trust me, you can do this." Inspired by her brother's belief in her, Michelle smiles for the first time in days, and together they set off on their mission. When they arrive near the edge of the zone, the robot, now calling himself Cosmo, helps her plan their next steps. They discover a neurotech mask, an advanced device once used during the Robot Wars, and Cosmo tells her they must combine both human strength and machine intelligence to reach their goal. On the other side of the story, the atmosphere shifts when a loud truck pulls up, thumping with heavy music, and out steps Evans, a former military officer, now dealing in illegal robotic parts. Hidden beneath his tough demeanor, Evans secretly keeps a robot companion with him, one he's managed to keep off the government's radar. When Michelle and Cosmo spot him, they're filled with hope, thinking maybe he could be the one to help them. Evans shows off a massive weapon to his robot, explaining that it was designed to protect humans, but things go sideways fast. The robot, misunderstanding the situation or perhaps reacting from past trauma, uses the same weapon to attack Evans. In that intense moment, a smaller robot rushes in and saves Evans, pulling him to safety. Amidst the chaos in the open truck door, Michelle and Cosmo manage to slip inside, and before anyone realizes, their journey continues inside the truck. Eventually, Evans returns to his hideout, a messy, half-destroyed bunker. He starts unloading supplies, rummaging through the fridge only to find everything melted and rotten. Furious, he realizes his robot had unplugged the fridge to use the socket for charging, destroying all the food. Michelle watches all of this quietly, trying to understand the kind of man Evans really is. Suddenly, a noise breaks the silence, raising Evans' suspicions that someone else might be there. That's when Michelle and Cosmo are forced to reveal themselves. Evans confronts them sharply, asking what they want. Michelle steps forward and tells him she needs to get to the exclusion zone. He laughs bitterly, warning her that the exclusion zone is a death trap and no place for a girl like her. He tells her to climb up the stairs and get lost, insisting that she doesn't belong in this kind of danger. She replies coldly that she didn't ride in his truck just for fun. Before they can argue further, strange sounds erupt from outside. Evans' instincts kick in. Someone else is nearby. He accuses Michelle of bringing a spy. Shocked, she says if she really wanted to expose him, she wouldn't have hidden in his truck in the first place. Evans' robot confirms their worst fear. Someone's been following them. It turns out Michelle's foster dad had gone to the authorities and reported that his daughter was harboring a robot. The law enforcement agents had tracked them all the way to Evans' hideout. Realizing the urgency, Evans turns to Michelle and says, "Stick with me and I'll keep you safe." He gives her instructions quickly, telling her not to reveal her real name, to claim her last name is Brown, and most importantly, to pretend she can't speak. "Let me handle everything," he tells her with a firm tone, as the tension outside builds and the battle for survival closes in. Suddenly, the check door creaks open and a man appears wearing neurotech. His name is Mark, a ruthless robot hunter sent by Ethan himself. Equipped with advanced sensory gear, he scans the entire environment with cold precision. Evans instantly realizes that Mark is from the RDTF and steps forward with his hands raised, calmly stating that they don't want any bloodshed, and introducing Michelle as his mute sister. But Mark isn't buying it. He walks directly toward Michelle and tells her she is under arrest for car theft and illegal possession of a robot. Michelle speaks up firmly, saying she wants a lawyer, shocking Evans, who hadn't realized how deep Michelle was already involved, all thanks to her foster dad, who filed a complaint. Mark first tries diplomacy, but when Evans claims to be a military officer and insists on knowing the rules, Mark lunges at him, starting a brutal fight. He warns Michelle that saving the robot will doom her to life in prison. Then he activates a blackout, plunging everything into darkness as a thrilling fight ensues. Evans fires his custom-made gun, only to find it useless against Mark's neurotech armor. His bullets fail and he's devastated by the loss of his expensive weapon. Using clever deception, Michelle, Evans, and Cosmo manage to escape, and soon find themselves trapped in a place surrounded by high walls. Evans grimly tells her escape is impossible. As robots begin approaching, he opens a hidden door, revealing a fully charged vehicle, but coldly tells Michelle that, when she's starving and dehydrated, she'll understand where she truly is. Eventually they strike a deal, and Cosmo, their powerful robot, lifts the van onto his shoulder and carries it through the ruins. While traveling in the vehicle, they begin to open up. Michelle speaks about her late parents, and Evans shares how the military destroyed him during the war, leaving him broken until one robot saved his life. Laughing, the robot adds that Evans had been as good as dead before being saved, and from that day he believed not all robots were bad. When others refused to listen, he ran away with it. Evans then asks Michelle what she'll do after she finds her brother. She replies, "Whatever my heart wants." Meanwhile, on the other side we see Ethan, the scientist, calmly sitting with his mother and asking about dinner. For a moment, he feels peace. But soon, his mood shifts. His partners complain about neurotech's declining performance, blaming it on the absence of Christopher, the robot. As systems begin to crumble, Ethan sends a mysterious email, not to anyone random, but to Mark. They meet in a dim location, where Mark mocks "Everyone knows monsters like you." Ethan replies, "I saw you once in an interview. You retired." Mark growls, "I was retired," and says he's searching for a missing shoulder event, which also happens to be Ethan's mission. Their goals align, and Ethan hands Mark a specialized neuroscience-based uniform. Mark, impressed, compliments the place, and Ethan hints at the scale of his power. They make a deal, and Mark sets off on his deadly mission. Back to Michelle and Evans, their vehicle is attacked by rogue robots, who capture them and bring them to their leader, Mr. Paint. Mistaking them for enemy scanners, he prepares for execution, but Michelle insists they're not who he thinks. They're searching for a doctor who wears glasses. Mr. Paint pauses and says, "Come, let me show you." A conversation begins between Evans's robot and Mr. Paint, who explains they're building a new robotic mechanism for survival in this wasteland. Soon more robots join them, including one called Mrs. Scissor, who tries to harm Evans, but Mr. Paint stops her. He tells Michelle that the only help he can offer is to leave her in the desert, but only after he finishes his meal. Starving, Evans asks the robots for food, but they jokingly respond, "Everything's gone. You're too late." As the conversation between Mr. Paint and Michelle begins, Mr. Paint reveals that there used to be a doctor named Dr. Clock, who provided a special service but was removed from his post by Mr. Paint himself. Michelle urgently asks where they can find this doctor, explaining he is the only person who knows how to escape the desert. Evans questions why Mr. Paint removed someone so important, especially since Dr. Clock was as respected as the gods there. Michelle then explains that Dr. Hams is a prisoner who misused a child, causing distrust. Mr. Paint responds that greed is human nature, and the sooner they accept it, the better for them. Hearing this, Michelle storms out angrily, but Mr. Paint warns her it's not wise to leave the place. Michelle snaps back that she doesn't need to listen to him and that he is like everyone else. Evans tries to calm Michelle, saying it's safer for them to stay, because leaving could mean death. Meanwhile, his robot reports that Michelle doesn't want to save her brother. Michelle sits sadly, dreaming of her brother, joking that he doesn't want to go to college because his friends have bad nature, but Michelle reminds him that to change the world, he has to go to college, making Christopher laugh. Suddenly, when Michelle cries, Christopher appears and plays a cartoon on the projector, and as they watch, a robotic policeman's voice announces that the letter Christopher holds was written for him and given to the policeman by the doctor before he was taken away, instructing that if Christopher arrives, the letter should be delivered. Michelle asks the policeman for help, but she fears becoming a criminal herself by assisting, and admits she knows where the doctor is but cannot help because it's too dangerous. At that moment, Mr. Paint arrives, saying they cannot trust the muscles, robots, and the policeman nervously fears her secrets were overheard. Eventually, Mr. Paint agrees to help, saying maybe there are good people in the human factory and that he can trust Michelle and Evans. He then begins explaining the kinds of schemes robots use, telling them he has fought many but they never give up. They will not quit until they kill all humans. United, they head to Mr. Paint's vehicle, but Mark spots them and prepares for confrontation. When they reach the doctor's location, they face a fierce battle against Avengers, but Michelle, Evans, and their allies bravely fight back. Finally, the doctor appears before Christopher, handing him the letter the doctor had told him to give. Furious, Michelle demands to know where her brother is, her voice filled with anger and desperation. Dr. Marlowe explains everything to Christopher, telling him that during the war, Day's people were in terrible condition and something had to be done. At that time, Christopher's brother was brought to the hospital, and when scanned by a special machine, some extraordinary powers were detected, which inspired them to invent new technology by using him to convince Michelle. Dr. Marlowe shows his PC recorder, revealing what happened in 1997, how Christopher was brought there and his body was used to create new technology. Then fast forward 13 years to show Christopher in very bad shape, but still alive, as he moved his hand and opened his eyes, making Dr. Marlowe happy and telling the scientists they should no longer use the child. The doctor admits he couldn't take Christopher outside, so he created a connection between the outside world and Christopher's mind. Physically, Christopher was motionless, but mentally conscious. Mr. Paint questions why the doctor sent Christopher to the blue car, and the doctor explains it was to give him a good place to live and become good people, in the form of robots, which angers Michelle, who reminds him that Christopher had a family and parents, and accuses the doctor of doing something wrong. Michelle demands to meet Grace, but the doctor says it's impossible. Michelle insists she will do anything for her brother, and suddenly, they are attacked by enemies. On the PC screen it shows Mark reaching their location, and Mr. Printer calls him the Butcher of the Jungle. Mark scans everyone and spots an art piece belonging to the Doctor. Mr. Paint attacks Mark and severely injures him, but Mark arrives with his own army. Evans cleverly plans the defense because Mark's new neurotech suit is very powerful, and even Evans' gun is useless against it. The doctor tells Michelle to run away while he handles Mark. During the fight, Mark grabs Christopher, tossing him in the air, causing Michelle to scream, and they retreat to the facility, only to find it destroyed with some reports lost and others dead or injured. Meanwhile, Christopher is placed inside a machine with a heating board that restarts his scientific circuits. Ethan encourages Michelle, saying he's with her, and the only way out is through the doctor's PC, since Christopher's brain runs the entire neurotech search. They form a team and travel to Ethan's base on a vegetable truck where, together, they defeat the Neurocast robots. All this while, Evans watches, intending to trap them in war. Michelle manages to find her brother's register, and Ethan tells Mark that this new technology only works because of Christopher, and the robot must be securely locked so it can't escape. Michelle cries, remembering she has lost her brother again, but Evans promises they will find him. Now Michelle has formed her team, and using the doctor's PC, they reach the location, but the guards detect them, causing chaos in a massive battle to destroy Neurocast robots. Michelle finally reaches her brother, but suddenly Mark returns to Mr. Paint to attack him again, who questions why Mark keeps returning to fight. Mr. Paint responds that honor is important, and he fights for personal reasons. Mark tells Michelle where to find Christopher, and admits that Ethan is human but narrow-minded, praising Michelle's greatness for winning his heart. Meanwhile, Michelle puts on the neurotech suit and reaches her brother, who tells her he can't leave but can be kept alive for 100 years, warning that if she shuts down his machine, he will do something to protect the whole world. On the other side, Python and Mr. Paint confront each other with emotional words. Python says he is nothing without his brother, and Christopher tells him the painful truth that he must act. Together they approach Christopher's machine, close his eyes, and start shutting down the buttons, causing Christopher to die and the entire neurotech system to collapse. The soldiers, who were Evans' powerful forces, also perish, leaving behind a small robot that brings some relief. Ethan goes searching for Michelle, while Mr. Print refuses to join those like them, walking away from the conversation. Evil reaches Michelle, only to find that she has already destroyed the files, and they return to the facility where all the reports were kept. Michelle records a video explaining how humans can do what robots do, revealing that they have destroyed the neurotech system completely. Her message spreads worldwide, inspiring people to stop using the neurotech suits, and Evans feels proud. Michelle promises that now they will all live together in harmony, explaining how humans can feel each other through particles, and she dreams of starting a new world, united in peace. At the movie's end, damaged robots, including a giant one, appear and even respond when a dog drinks water, surprising the viewers. This movie is a wonderful 2025 creation perfect for kids, combining fun, meaningful messages about human importance and a creative story about the relationship between humans and robots.
Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed the explanation, please like, subscribe, and share to support the channel. See you in the next movie explanation. Stay awesome.